Okay, hello Athens. Beautiful people, everybody. All right, thank you very much for the introduction. So today I'm going to be talking about 4 apps, 1 code with Ionic. This is probably, I can see a lot of people don't already believe me because they read that and they're like, that's not possible, which is the whole point of this talk, and I'm hopefully just bear with me while I go with you. So I will start by doing this boring bit, which is where I tell you a bit more about myself. My name is Sani Yusuf. Well, by the way, did Google Translate do it right? Is that how you spell Yasu? Okay, blame Google. It's Google's fault. All right, my name is Sani Yusuf. I founded a company called Hybrid, which is basically us doing a lot of hybrid mobile applications. I tried to buy HYBRID, but you can tell that it was very expensive, and I couldn't afford it. So hey, hybrid, you know? I co-organize the Ionic UK community. I'm very much involved in the Ionic community everywhere I go. I'm a paddleboarding enthusiast. Wherever I go, I'd like to paddleboard. Atlantic, North Sea, Pacific, Mediterranean. Yeah, and hopefully I'll do that in Greece too. And has anybody seen the Avatar movie? Yes, not the Last Airbender, the blue people. Yes, that is the best movie of all time. I don't care what you say, but that is the best movie of all time, like literally. All right, you can find me online at Sani Yusuf, SANIYUSUF everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, maybe not Facebook, but yeah, Twitter, Medium, everything, saniyusuf.com. If you find anybody using this username and they don't look like me, please let me know so I can sue them. Trademark. All right. Let us begin. Today I'm going to show you how you can create 4 applications with 1 code base. And how I'm going to schedule the talk today is we're going to do a little bit of history. Come on, we're in Greece. Why not? Let's do some history, right? And then we track back and do some demos, and then we'll take some questions and round up. Okay, so how you're going to, I'm going to show you how you can create 4 separate applications with literally 1 code base. So first, we were going to create an iOS mobile application. And this iOS app, basically an app that runs on your iPhones or your tablets, if you're smart enough to buy one of those products. It's going to be installable from the Apple App Store. It'll work on all iOS devices as well. And it would look and feel like a typical iOS application that you're used to. Now, why do I make this point? Every mobile application out there, some of us have Android phones, some of us have Windows mobile phones, some of us have Blackberries, if you still have some of those. But yeah, the way the apps look on these platforms are very, very different from platform to platform. So they have different animations, different buttons, different styles, different icons. And when you're trying to share code within different multiple platforms, it can be quite difficult. So what we will end up is with an app that actually still keeps that level of detail. And the next, we're going to do an Android application as well. This Android application is going to be installable in the Google Play Store as well. So you can it's just be like any other Android app. You can go and download it from the Google Play Store. It will work on pretty much every Android device out there possible, no exceptions. It will look and feel like a typical Android application as well. Again, Android has its own design, material design, which is very different from iOS. The animations are different, the buttons are different, the font sizes are different, and it would look and feel just like that as well. We're going to create a Windows Universal application. Microsoft doesn't want us to use the Windows Phone. They say Windows Universal. It's going to be installable from the Windows Store again, but seriously, in 2017, if you're still making Windows apps for the Windows Phone, I'm sorry for you, because literally nobody's buying Windows phones anymore. Sorry. If you still have a Windows Phone, time to get a new Christmas present. Yes. All right. So last but not the least, we're also going to have what I call a super web application. Now, what do I mean by super web application? The concept of what a web application is today is different. A few years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we didn't even call web apps. We called them websites, right? You know, we would say, hey, have you gone on the website? But today, when developers, we say, oh, yeah, I have a web app. You know, I have a mobile app. Because the concept of what an application is has changed. And so what do I mean by a super web application? It's going to work on a normal desktop. Because what happens today is no longer the devices that dictate what we use or what we call an application. It's the experience, right? I want to be able to meet this beautiful girl on this dating website on my computer, and while I'm on the train, I want to be able to send a very nice message, you know. I don't want to have to wait to go back home and log on my computer. By then, you know, she's probably talked to someone else, and that doesn't really do well for me. So it's the experience that moves. I want to be able to see when she's online because I'm a stalker like that on my Apple Watch, you know. Like, but all I'm trying to say is the experience that moves. You know, today we log on, we start working at home, we go on the train, we continue on our laptops, our tablets. You know, while we're on the move, we respond to notifications on our phones, and we get to the office and we log onto this maybe mainframe computer or anything. So that experience is what moves from platform to platform. So it's also going to be responsive to mobile devices. So that means you wouldn't need to do anything. It's just going to work on a mobile phone. So that means if you went to like m.myverygreatwebsite.com, how to see the mobile edition of that. A few years ago, people, there's two ways where we get mobile applications. We can have, you know, responsive apps that just kind of mimic, but also some companies have dedicated mobile experiences, right? Because sometimes responsive is not good enough. When a mobile device, you have less screen real estate, you have smaller RAM, smaller processors, so you need to think about these things. A lot of people just build this, you know, giant 50 megabyte website and they go on a mobile phone because on Chrome, you know, everything works on Chrome. Everything's cool. Chrome is the biggest liar. Like, Chrome is that friend that you should never bring home. Chrome is the worst liar because when you're testing everything on Chrome, it works. It is fast. But then you forget that most people are on 3G, you know, and most people have actually really, really crappy phones. Exactly. And so it goes beyond just being responsive, but it's going to give you a mobile app-like experience. And also, it's going to support Progressive Web App Initiative. Hands up if you know what the Progressive Web App Initiative is about. Okay, so I would explain a bit further. So today, if you have a mobile application, right? Let's say you just get this great idea and you want to, you know, build this nice application. So you need to support multiple platforms. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Android and Windows. I know some people have like Ubuntu OS or Firefox OS or Blackberries, you know. But let's put those aside. The two major platforms you want to target today are Android and iOS, right? So now you need to hire a team of a couple of idiots to develop your Android phone app, and you have to hire another team for your iOS. And guess what? These guys don't like each other. Right? So you're trying to build the same application, but these people hate each other. And if a boss hits this guy today from the Android team, a guy from the iOS team can't just come and replace. Why? It's completely different languages. iOS is Swift, Objective-C, right? Android is Java or C++, or now they've just launched Kotlin, I think it's called, to create that. And with iOS, you're using the UI kit, while with Android, you're using the Android SDK. So it's completely different. You're speaking Greek, I'm speaking English. We don't understand each other, you know. So that kind of thing. But the problem is, on the web, what happens on the web is, if we're building a web application, right, we just build one app, we push to master on Friday, and that's it. No, don't push to master on Friday. But we push to master, and the people get the latest web application, right? It doesn't matter what device they're on. As long as they have a browser, they will be able to access that web application. Well, Internet Explorer had some say. But apart from that, like, you generally got the same experience across, right? But with the app stores, first of all, for Apple especially, You have to submit your app, pay them $100 every year, do that, and 2 weeks later, they reject your app because they don't like the way you look, or they just don't like you. I've had my app rejected because it was too ugly. It said your app is not visually appealing enough. Yeah, my ego, that really crushed me. But this is the reality today. Your app will get rejected. So let's say, for example, it's Christmas, you want to change your sales team tells you that, oh, if you make the Santa hat, put the Santa hat on your logo, it's going to drive sales by 300% and we're going to become millionaires. By the time you submit your app and they actually approve it, it's going to be New Year or Easter already. So you've lost all that. So what I'm trying to say is with the web, we are not enslaved to the App Store, right? We don't need an App Store. You go to www.verygreatwebsite.com, you get it. So what Google have tried to do with the Progressive Web App Initiative is now they've made this thing called the Serviceworker, which I'll talk about a little bit, and manifest.json, which what allows you to do, that allows you to do is to actually install a web application. So you can actually go save it to your home screen. These applications will have an icon, they'll have splash screens, and when the new update comes, the user just gets the latest version, just like every other web app. And also, they would work offline, which is the most important thing. Because I think offline is the most underrated thing in terms of mobile applications. Imagine if you could not filter through your WhatsApp messages when you were on the train. Imagine if you couldn't quickly search your Gmail while you were on the train because you didn't have internet connection. But I tell you what, the reality today is majority of apps do not care about you when you're offline. Facebook, I'm looking at you. If you don't have internet, Facebook chooses and picks when it will respond to you. Some people do it really well, like the Google applications, they really do offline really well, like Google Music, for example, they really support. But I think offline is the most critical thing because half the time you're using an application, your internet connection, you cannot really respect it. But anyways, we can move on ahead now. So all these things, we're going to actually achieve all these, the super web app, iOS, Android, Windows, with one code base. We are not going to write two code bases. We're not going to be doing a lot of if and else's. We're just going to write one code, focus on building that, and it's just going to adapt depending on what device. So I can see how a lot of people in the room at this point are just like, they don't believe me at all because they're like, oh, what is this? What's this guy going to show us here? Like, I promise you, just come with me on a journey. Let me show you how to build awesome applications. All right. So firstly, what is Ionic, right? Anybody in the house using Ionic already? Ionic 1? Ionic 2? Exactly. Security, can you shoot all the Ionic 1 people? I'm messing with you. But yeah, so what is Ionic? If I was to be very, very elaborate, I would say Ionic, comes from the Greek word. Yeah, exactly. And just in case you don't know, you should see that movie if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen this movie, your life is not complete. But yeah, but that is not the real meaning of Ionic. What really is Ionic? Ionic is an open source SDK that lets web developers build mobile applications. Remember how I talked about how the iOS team and the Android team, they all use different languages, right? But they're all trying to build the same application. Why should we fight when we're trying to achieve the same goal? Right? The web is the only way that allows us to do that. So with Ionic, you're using web technologies because the problem with the problem with using something like Ionic, which is a hybrid technology, is this. If you've developed native apps before, you'd see that the native apps have great components. They have buttons, sliders, very cool things, you know what I mean, like tabs and animations. You don't have to develop this. So it's like if I tell you to build a house, I've already bought you all the chairs and everything. I just say, hey, decorate your house, right? But on the web, what do we have? We have div, we have span, tables if you still use them. That's all we have with CSS. The web is like, if I'm telling you to build a house, I'm giving you your sand, cement, water, and I'm saying, build your house. That's literally what it is. While native, it's components that are already built. already hardware accelerated, which work really well, right? So we needed something to fill that gap for the web, to work on top of Cordova, which is what lets you access device features. And this is what the void that Ionic fills. And Ionic fills that void to the very level detail. So let's find out a bit more about Ionic. So the first thing I'm going to say is it's really just web. It's built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Have you tried building a slider from scratch? Who here builds their slider from scratch? Oh, there's a lot of you. Well, not me, because I would go to like Bootstrap or something like that, right? Who here doesn't use something like Bootstrap, like writes their own framework from scratch? We have like 5 very, very interesting people. Exactly. The reason why we use things like Bootstrap is because we want to be productive, It's very difficult on the web to build things from scratch. It takes time. You don't want to spend half your time building a framework to actually help you build your app. You want to spend time building your app. And that's why. So it's built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, everything there. And also, it's built with Angular. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. So it's built on top of the Angular framework. And why did they choose the Angular framework? When they looked at the trends and they saw that by far Angular is the largest community. React is catching up now, Vue.js and everything. So it's built on top of Angular. So you have all the goodness of the Angular framework. It has a fully featured CLI too. For all the Angular people, I know how when Angular was very early, we were very confused because there's so much. Traditionally, when we're developing web applications, what do? You make a change, you refresh your browser, you see the latest change, right? The Dreamweaver days. But today, you have to have a build tool, Webpack, Rollup, you have to have Grunt running, something. Like, it's much more complicated. When I was learning how to make web apps, all I did is I just make a change, I refresh my browser, good to go. But today you have to have a server, so there's so many things. And this is what the Ionic CLI does for you, all these, because Angular works with TypeScript, all the TypeScript and transpilation, all that process is handled for you. So you can just focus on building your application, not setting up Webpack. It has SAS compilation, so it uses SAS if you like to use SAS. If you've used less, it should be very similar. You can do all that for you to convert it to CSS. It has a happy marriage with the Cordova CLI. So sometimes you don't need to run separate commands for the Cordova CLI. You can run them directly from the Ionic CLI. Scaffolding, if you use Yeoman to generate scaffolds, you can do that. And it has a very great error reporting tool. If you've used Angular, finding errors is very difficult because Angular will be like, something is wrong with your application. I don't necessarily know what it is. You go find out. And it gives you this long list of errors that completely make no sense to anybody, But with Ionic, actually, the error reporting is right there. It shows you the line and everything that, hey, this is where your problem is. And I would demonstrate that as well. So it's very customizable. When we are building mobile applications, we all want to, know how to build our things. We want to know how can our colors, our brand, how we can fit that in, right? So Ionic allows you to easily plug in and play things like that. It has an awesome, huge community, 30,000 stars on GitHub. When you're trying to use something, you want to know who's using it. Do you know Untapped Beer? Untapped, the beer application, very famous. It's actually built with Ionic. SoarKit, 25 million plus users. These are apps that are built with Ionic. There are a lot more hybrid apps out there. Instagram is a hybrid application. Slack is a hybrid application. The Slack on your desktop is actually working with Electron. So there are a lot more. Visual Studio Code is a hybrid application. So people don't download apps to say, is it native, is it hybrid? No. Does it work? That's the most important thing. You don't go buying a car and asking, who built my car? No, does the car drive really well? Are my friends going to hate me for this car? Yes, I'll buy it. That's the thing. So it has a very active community, Slack channels and stuff like that. It has a lot of native S components, so you can look at some of the components here. You've never seen them, but you can kind of get a feel for the semantics. Like this is the header, this is the content area, and stuff like that. Okay. And it's also progressive web app ready, which you've already discussed. For now, the progressive web apps are Chrome only because some people in the Safari team haven't quite decided what they want to do with our lives. I don't know how Apple gets away with all these things. And this is what the service worker. So the service worker I talked about is a technology that sits between your app and the server. Every time you send a HTTP request, it hits the service worker first before it goes to the server. And whenever a request is coming back from the server, it hits the service worker before it goes to your app. So that allows you to save cache requests so that next time maybe if you're getting this same image again, you don't need to like go to do the round trip, and makes your app perform much faster, you know. And multilingual support. If I came to Greece and I just talked about things about how to do with English alone, I think I'll probably get shot before I forget. But that's the good thing, is like it has a lot of multilingual support, you know, because I think when half of the world, I think development is very English focused. It seems like people forget that like more than half of the world doesn't actually speak English. And it's the same way we forget that almost 1 billion people read from right to left. We take that for granted. So these are things that are supported in Ionic. So with multilingual support, you can use the ng2 translate, which I will actually show as well. So how does it all fit together? You have all your device features. You have your Ionic code, which sits with Ionic, then wraps around with Angular. Everything runs within a web view. And that web view is in your native app container. And that is what uses Cordova to give you access to all these device features. So, talk. Time to show, right? Good stuff. Who wants to see some demos? Good. Everybody wants to see some demo. So let me just tell you, because this is a demo, there are 1,001 things that could go horribly wrong. If anything goes wrong, you did not see it. Just pretend. Okay, good stuff. So the first thing I would probably want to do is, don't worry, I do have a backup running. So let me just go to CD desktop. So I'm already, let me just do this CD. So to save time, instead of creating a brand new application and waiting for our great internet to do npm install, that's not a great use of our time. So if I wanted to start a brand new application with Ionic, I will have the Ionic CLI installed. I would just do Ionic start, you know, the name of my app, blah, blah, you know, and then I can give it like, what's it called? Templates. Ionic comes with built-in templates. There's a side menu, a tabs template, a conference application template, Google Maps template, and also if there's any template out there on GitHub, you can just put the GitHub URL. So you can build that, or you can just go blank and just start from scratch. Now, I've already built an application. I've already started a brand new application, I promise you, with the tabs application, and I'm going to showcase that to you. So let's actually go to my browser here and look at that here. So if we actually go here, and if this lets us be great, what I would actually do instead is I will come here, and I will close this, and I would just say Ionic Lab, which is a command that actually runs the serve command. And so this is where the CLI is going to do all the great things I told you it's going to do. You know, do all your SaaS and your Webpack, which things I really don't want to care about. And it's going to open this very great view for us. And we can actually go Android, Windows. So let me just make this a bit smaller so that we can actually see it. Is that a bit visible? That's it. So this is the exact same code running. The same exact code. You've seen that I haven't made any changes, and I'm going to show you that code. But you can see that on iOS, it looks different. The icons are different. Anybody can guess any other things that are different? Anyone? Yeah? Yeah, the tabs placement, right? Exactly, you can see. If you look at Android, you can see how the header is aligned. It's to the left. Because by default, if you own an Android phone, you'd be used to that. They're aligned by the left. The shadow on Android is slightly different. The text font size is different. It uses the Roboto font. This is all built in for free. That's really great because now even the animations are different. So you don't need to worry about how is it going to look on an Android phone because you don't want an Android application to look like an iOS one. You need it to be that. And you get all that for free. So let's actually look at the code for this, right? So if we can just say, so I called this application the Front End Athens. which is this. And I can just open it up on Visual Studio Code. Let's make this full screen. Is that visible to everybody? Okay, so let's look at a typical Ionic structured application. Like I said, it's just an Angular application. We can see that, what's it called? Resources, we can go. And if we actually go to like the pages here, we can see the home page. We can just come here and just make a very, very small change and say, welcome to front end, you know, United. And we can just save that. And if you actually go back, we can see that it's already automatically refreshed. These are some of the things that the CLI handles for you automatically. But these are simple things. We can do much more advanced things, like every time you create an Ionic application, you can actually, you get what we call a service worker by default, which is where our next application that I'm going to showcase to you is. You get all of that built in for you with the service worker. And what does that do? That allows you to launch your app while offline. So now I'm going to switch to my next application and show you exactly what I mean by that. So I'm going to open an application called Netflix, sorry. So what is the Netflix application? So I made this application called Netflix and Chill. Don't get too excited, but it's an application that literally allows you to, it's like a reflection of a new design for Netflix. And why don't I just go ahead and show you that? So let's actually see this application here running. Let's go to our browser, sorry. And if we go here, we can actually see this application running here. So this is just a normal, a Netflix. So let's actually try and see if we can run it with a Ionic Lab here. So let's go to WebStorm here. And let's do this. And let's say Ionic Lab. OK. So let's just wait for the SAS to start. And we can see it in Ionic Lab running. Yes, so this is what the application looks like, right? It's an app I just built during Christmas because I was bored. And it has a lot of things, multilingual support. You can see that you can go, whenever you see a movie, you like click this. If you wait for 5 seconds, you see like a background, what's it called? 5-second background of the movie, right? That's one of the impressive things as well. Also, what we have here is, for example, we can actually go ahead and change languages to this. And if we actually refresh this from scratch again, let's see. So let's go and delete all the cache to make sure that we're actually getting a new version served. OK. Let's see how we can do this. Localhost 8100. OK, 8101. So let's go to localhost 8101 and just go to inspect element. And we go to the applications tab. Chrome is not letting me be great. So what I'm trying to do is actually just make sure I'm clearing all my storage, all the site data. And if I go back here and I refresh this, and I close this, and I put all the Android and Windows phone here, we can actually see that. And now we can actually see my latest update, which is the one with the with Greek translation. So I'm just going to showcase the translation. And when you click that, you can see that all the headers change to Greek. You can see that for English, for Danish, and stuff like that. And we can still see all that. But what makes this a super web application? The part I would want to show you is the progressive web app and where it will actually work offline. So let's actually go ahead. So this is the part that could really, 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 really go wrong because it can. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this tab, which is the same application running, but allows us to see a bit more. And what we're going to do is we're going to go on Chrome, and we're going to go to the network bar, and there should be an option to allow us to go offline. So when I click this, this should allow us to go offline. And now if I refresh, so we're offline, but the app is still working. Okay, let me just refresh that again. We're offline, but the app is still working. Now, I can even go as far as removing, which is a very dangerous thing to do, removing the actual internet here. And if I go here and try to go to maybe go.com, I should be able to see like a dinosaur somewhere, or nothing should work. Exactly. It's because we don't have any internet. But still, if we went back to our application, I still refreshed, carried on, we'll see that our application still works offline. That's the very key thing. And if we actually go ahead and see all this, you can see that now, because we just refreshed the application, that initial load that we had, the 5-second, didn't work. So let's make sure we connect back to the internet and check that now. And I know it looks like magic to some people, like we're going to work through the code and just see how that is achieved. So let's go back. If we look at our network tabs, you can see that a lot of things are failing. If we try to go to something else, it would actually fail. And then this now loads because we're back with the internet connection. If we go back here, we can see that all these things load up. So we know that we've seen this before. And if you actually now sort of like refresh again, and then try to go offline again, we can see that, and we refresh, we can see that we're still able to see our app, and now that 5-second has been cached. If we try to see maybe another movie that we haven't necessarily cached, so all these have been pre-cached already, and we can see how they work. So how do we achieve that? This is where the service worker comes in. And it goes beyond like this, because what you're able to do now is on your phone, even if you're in airplane mode, you'll be able to have a web application like this, saved and working. So now you don't need to build a Facebook natively. You can actually just build it on the web and have it work offline. So let's see how that is possible. Let's go back to here. So what makes this possible is the service worker here. So if you create an Ionic application, you have two files by default, the manifest.json and the service worker file. The manifest.json is what you use to basically show, like, describe your application. Give it a name, an icon. If you've done native, it's like the manifest file for Android, and I don't know what it's called for iOS. It's the info plates, info the PLS IT, exactly. This is what you do. So let's have a look at the manifest. It's just, I can save the application name and all those things and give it the icon, while the service worker is where all the magic happens. So the service worker is a technology that allows your app to, so the service worker is independent from the application itself. It runs independently. So even when your app is closed, the service worker will still be running. Now, what does that allow you to do? You can now receive like push notifications, because even when your app is not launched, you can start your app from code, because that service worker is on the system level, not application level. It doesn't care whether your app is running. So even if you tell the service worker to cache a file, even if you close your app, the service worker will still be running in the background. And what does that allow? We can see a lot of what we call life cycles. The service worker has a life cycle of different stages. It can become active, and we can see all what I'm doing here is I'm just waiting for the service worker to be active. And if it's active, I'm just checking the cache if the cache has changed. And I delete the old cache. And also, what I do is I add the fetch event, which is the AJAX request. Every time somebody sets an AJAX request, the fetch request, I check my, cache to see if I have a corresponding thing. So let's say if it's an image, www.saniyusuf.com/very-beautiful-picture.jpg. If this is the same image, why do I need to go to the server to get it a second time? So I just cache that, and I serve the cache version. But also, if we don't find it in the cache, then I tell the service worker, okay, go to the server and get this and return it to the user. And this cache API is unlimited. It allows you to pretty much have unlimited storage. You still have access to IndexedDB from here as well, but you cannot access the DOM. So literally, that is all. And this service worker, I did not need to change anything. You get this for free when you launch an Ionic application. So every Ionic app you launch by default is a super web application. And you can just take that code, bundle it to your server, and you are good to go. So now we can actually go back to the, what's it called? The next thing we're going to see is the translation module. So if we actually go to our code here, and we go to our app.modules, the translation module is called what we call ng-true-translate module. It's a third-party module that's open source. And what that allows you to do is for translation, it's really easy because all you need to do is once you just npm install it for ng-true-translate like this, you just need to import these 3 translation services, and you declare them in your imports, and then you have what we call a i8n folder, and you list all the languages you want, right? So, for example, you can see I have Danish, English, and Greek, which is EL. So if we go to Danish, I can say anytime this person is trying to get the term trend, give them this. If they're in Greek, give them the equivalent as well. How do we use that? Let's go to the index, the homepage.html. So if we go to the homepage.html, you can see actually how we're using this. So that translation module is available as a pipe. So you can see how I say anytime the word trend, which is like the key holder, just get me the equivalent of the language that's currently set. Now, how do I set that language? I have 3 functions called, so let's go to the home.html, and we can actually see our button here. Yes. So I can see 3 functions here. That one has set Danish, set English, and set Greek. So let's actually go to the TS and see what those look like. So I'm just saying set Danish, this.translate, which is here in my class. I'm just calling the translate service, and I'm just saying set the corresponding language. So now you can have as many languages as possible and as many terms as possible. And this makes it easy. And also this has a module for dynamic loading. So for example, if you want to dynamically load a translation on the fly, maybe you have like a REST API that's translating for you, you can easily achieve that. Okay. So now let's go back to the slides. So anyways, forget about this, but I always think that that's awesome because now we are in a place where we can really, really run web applications offline. So how about for Android and iOS, right? We haven't really seen that. We've seen the super web app. So let's go back. So now what we can do is we can go here, we can just open another, and we can say Ionic run iOS. Oh, sorry, Ionic Cordova run iOS. Okay, not for this one, so we can say yes. Let's try and do a quick npm install. And what that's going to do is we can do the same thing for Android as well. Ionic Cordova run Android. And what that's going to do is it's going to add the Android, plugins for us, and it's going to just build and then launch into the emulator. So unfortunately, we're not going to show Windows Phone because I think we've all agreed that no one is going to be developing Windows applications. But iOS and Android are pretty big. So for example, we're going to give this a bit of some time while we carry on. Let's actually go to the hardware and see how we can scale this to maybe 50% so that it's a bit more visible. So we'll do that. Oh, so it's already launched already. So this is an iPhone emulator running live on my phone. And you can see how that I've kind of scaled it now, so I've messed it all up. But you can see that application actually running on an emulator. And this is a native app. So this is an app that you can actually launch to the App Store and have people download or pay money for. This is literally the same code running. At no point here did we make any changes of some sort. We're just still running. This is still HTML running right there. And that's very, very key. And we can just do the same things. We can tap and view. And with our service worker as well, we'll still have the benefit of that for the offline usage of our application. So let's go back to the slide. So another thing I want you to be aware of is the Ionic Cloud. So Ionic Cloud is sort of like suite of tools that Ionic built, and you can actually use their push notification services, which work very well. They have a very generous free tier. Authentication, if you want to authenticate your users, it's like 2 lines of code from different providers, Facebook, Twitter, email and password. Analytics, if you want to know what your users are doing, you know, you want to like Prism and see what they're buying and everything. Ionic Deploy is something I actually talked about 2 weeks ago, and I have a talk out there on my slides.com account, which you can actually read. It allows you to update your app without going through the App Store. Remember how I talked about Apple and how they can hate you for just wanting to update an application, like say no? So sometimes, a lot of the times, we just want to make a quick change. Let's say we want to just change the color of a header or text, you know? If you were to do that with iOS, that means you have to submit a new update, which has to be reviewed and will take time. But on the web, sometimes maybe one of our developers just makes a very small mistake, and we want to fix that quickly. We can do that quickly with Ionic Deploy. You can just push that update, and the users will get it live. So I think this is really cool. This is something that a lot of people find very useful, because now you can hot update your applications. An Ionic package, so if you, for example, you are working with, what's it called? Let's say Windows machine. You cannot develop for Mac on a Windows. You can just build your application on the cloud with Ionic package. So to get started today, you can just go to any of these links. I don't know why the link is so dark now. But yeah, you can go to the Get Started page. You can go to the forums. You can join the Slack channel. There's more than 13,000 people up there. I will be sharing these slides on my Twitter anyway. So Josh Maroney is a guy that blogs about Ionic really well. And you can literally read his blogs. He talks about so much. And you can find me online. With that done, I would say thank you very much, Athens, and I'll be willing to welcome any questions or something else that you want to see now. Thank you very much. Questions?
Thank you very much, first of all.
Pleasure is mine.
I have a question about the first part, where we launched the application, the website offline.
Yes?
Where the cache of the that we're talking about, where it is, and if the user cleans the cache of the let's say offline application, what the application will show to him. If I clean the cache of the
so if you clean the cache of the application, you're just gonna see the dinosaur game.
Okay, yeah? So it stops functioning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's
there is no data. Okay.
Yes.
And when we how often, if I change, let's say offline an image that we have already cached inside the mobile phone.
Yes.
When will it update if it says, okay, I found the image in the cache, how the application knows when to to update the image, if the name is the same, let's say.
Okay, so the cache is totally up to you. Is everything okay? Okay, so the cache, updating your cache is totally up to you. You come up with your own cache. I can actually quickly show you how I did mine if I show you again. So for me, what I do is anytime I make a change, let's say I'm updating my application, I'm pushing to master, and there's something that has changed in, maybe I've changed my design. I don't want my users to see my old design. I just increase the number of the cache version up here to maybe 4, you know? I just added. It's just like how you would for any other Android app, you just increase the build number, right? And so if you look at what's happening here is I'm checking cache version plus this, right? So every time I give the cache a name based on the version number. So if it doesn't match, that means something has changed. So I shouldn't be showing you the older one. So you have so many ways to handle your own, what's it called? Yes. Yes, please.
How do you compare the second part, the performance of the mobile app compared to a native script app?
A native app, okay.
No native app, native script app.
Oh my God, you're asking that because I play football every Thursday with the king of native script. This is going to be interesting. Sebastian, I hope you're watching. So I think I can't really speak for NativeScript, right? NativeScript is a great technology that allows you to, develop native apps with JavaScript. What I can tell you is Ionic is not, I think these two technologies are not competing to each other. There are times when you might want to use a NativeScript app and an Ionic app, but today we want to do everything on the web. That's agreed, right? We want to do. WebAssembly was just launched last month. So in a few years, or by next year, we're going to start seeing Photoshop on the web, FIFA on the web. Why? The web is no longer just a browser now. It's a platform. We want to do everything on the web. So how they compare performance-wise, I always say hybrid apps would never, ever be as fast as native apps, in any type of native apps. But it doesn't matter, as long as it is fast enough, right? What is performance? What is native? Native is whatever we give it to mean, right? 60 frames per second is what we call good performance, right? So as long as I achieve 60 frames per second and you have 120, it doesn't matter. The human eye can only process 60 anyways, right? So performance is what users perceive. And if your app, when users go to the App Store, they do not look, is it native? Is it hybrid? No. Does it work well? Yes. Instagram, remember, is still a hybrid application. The part you scroll is a web view. But we don't have a problem with that because we don't care. It works. So that's the thing. And the case for me personally, the case for native keeps getting smaller, while the case for the web only gets bigger. Any questions?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have a question that I didn't understand. You just personally don't like the Windows Universal Platform,
yes,
or Ionic doesn't support it?
So Ionic does support the Windows Universal Platform. I got a bit jokey when I said, so when I say Windows Universal, I'm not just talking about Windows Phone, because Windows Universal is, what's it called, the tablets, everything basically, right? Because Windows now allow you to use one code for anything, Xbox and everything. So what I say about Windows Universal Support is the design language of the Windows Universal, the icons are supported. They're first-class citizens in Ionic. But today, nobody really develops a Windows Phone application. But if you are using something like Ionic and you have a Windows app, it's just going to work thoroughly. I don't know if that answers your question. OK. Do we still have some time? OK, we have like...
So I have a question as well.
Yes.
I'm going to take advantage of having the microphone. So you said earlier that the service worker is taking care of all the offline functionality. Let's say that we start using service workers in our projects,
yes,
and their current limitations of at least the WebKit of Chrome
yes,
is like, if I recall, 50 megabytes. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if we start using service workers in our projects, eventually we will end out of the capacity of the actual browser supporting it.
So that's a great question. So I think I'll repeat this as well. So the space that the service worker is using to cache is not your local storage or your session storage. Sorry, session storage. I'm struggling to say that word. The session storage. It's actually the system storage. So it's using the storage, unlimited storage, or whatever device you're on. If you're on a computer, that is your hard disk. If you're on your phone, that is your memory card or whatever. And now you can actually say only the system itself has the ability to remove stuff on your service worker. Maybe it is running out of memory. But now you actually have a new ability to say, even when the system is running out of memory, this particular data, if you're building like a security application, you don't want that to be just the system should say, hey, I don't have memory. Delete something elsewhere, but not this. So it doesn't use the Chrome session storage. No, it uses the system's memory, which is unlimited. It's to your mercy. Yes. So
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Athens.
Any other questions for Sani? All right. Thank you very much.
Pleasure is mine.